Greetings, everybody. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of a 6-part series on Airborne Kingdom. This series was originally streamed live on Twitch, and it is part Let's Play, part tutorial. I hope you enjoy. So before I start, I should explain what this game is and what to expect. So I have a lovely about command for Twitch, and I'll just read it aloud for YouTube. Airborne Kingdom is a game where you design and build your own flying kingdom and lead it on a quest across an expansive world. You have to carefully manage resources, balance labor, colonist desires, and also make sure to stay afloat. And, balanced. This series will be a tutorial series on normal difficulty, and will likely be playing from start to finish, and it will, of course, air on YouTube. So we're going to start a brand new game, and there's a little bit of a lengthy introduction cutscene, so I'm going to disappear for a minute. So I'm going to just do regular old New Game, not New Game Plus, which is unlocked when you beat the game. And then there is also a creative mode where it's just a sandbox and you can do whatever you want.
In a bygone age, a kingdom existed like no other. This kingdom did not anchor its power. This kingdom took to the skies. The Airborne Kingdom traveled to every kingdom on the ground, sharing knowledge, culture, and tradition. Its great council guided the lands through a golden age. Yet, long before even our elders can remember, the Airborne Kingdom vanished. The people sought to continue their harmony, but self-interest began to overrule. The land's 3 regions slowly isolated. Trade, travel, connections all unwound. Kingdoms contracted, and small settlements nearby were nearly wiped away. Bygone times turned to legend. But in the tapestry, we found instructions. A blueprint to remake the technology of the ancients. A prophecy to restore the Airborne Kingdom. There was but one belief we had wrong that day, though it proved vital. For such a finding was no chance at all.
All right, that is the story premise or preface to Airborne Kingdom. I do have a poll for you all, though, which is about the gameplay tutorials, whether or not you want me to do them individually or just explain what I'm doing as I play. So that's the first poll. And liftoff. All our painstaking efforts have succeeded. Our home flies. Yet this is only the beginning. To truly rebuild the ancients' vision, I feel like I'm playing the vultures, we need to find every kingdom upon the lands and befriend them as common allies. We also need inhabitants to form our great council in this new empire. We should start with the kingdom of Rutula, not far from us, and the only kingdom we know. But first, we must build houses and find supplies. Looks like overwhelmingly explain as I play will win. So I'm going to explain some very basic gameplay mechanics. First off, the UI. You've got the time here, the time elapsed since start, and time controls, pause up to fastest speed. You also have how happy, well, let me turn down the music just a little bit, but how happy your inhabitants are. And depending on the happiness, they either might desert you, or you might not be able to recruit. So some people will not join your Airborne Kingdom unless you're jubilant. And then you can also track how many more workers it takes to change kingdom titles. And each increase of a kingdom title will increase the demands of the people in the kingdom. Here's population. How many are housed? So 9 people, 0 houses, and 9 of them idle. There are no jobs. And then this section is resources. So you've got food and water needed by your inhabitants. You've got lift, because as you build parts of your kingdom, you need to increase the amount of lift that you have in your kingdom. And you also have to make sure that the lift is sort of universally placed around your floating city. If you have too much lift in the front and not enough lift in the back, it will start to tilt. Same with left and right, like pitch and yaw. And there, when you have a extreme pitch or extreme yaw, basically, if your kingdom is tilting, people will not be happy. It's like living in San Francisco. And then you've got speed. Speed is propulsion. I don't have any technology that adds propulsion yet, but we'll get there. And then fuel, coal. So everything is coal-powered, unfortunately. Everything is coal-powered, and if you run out of coal, your kingdom crashes into the land and you lose. Then you have resources. Wood, basically bricks or adobe, iron, glass, and canvas. You start off needing wood and adobe, and then eventually you tech up to needing the more advanced stuff, and then you have resource storage for this stuff. A finite amount of research storage for those 5 resources. Food and water have their own storage capacities as well. And then lastly, relics, which is sort of a currency that you trade for technology. All right, it looks to me like you want me to explain as a play, so let's kill that poll. That has been decided. So the first thing that we're going to want to do on this little floating world here is build some... Well, I need to go through the building menu as well. Let's do that real quick. So you have wonders, and I don't currently have any wonders found. It's going to be a while until I find any wonders. You've got the basics, which is housing blocks, which are built into sort of quads, I guess, where you have sets of 4. That's kind of how they're designed. You don't have to build sets of 4, but it's probably ideal to do that. Hangars. So what hangars allows you to do, when I build a hangar, is it allows you to employ little bi-wing airplanes to go collect resources from the ground. Your city never lands. So in order to exploit the resources that you're flying around, like this forest ahead of me, I would need to send planes down to go collect the wood and bring it back to the Airborne Kingdom. Or whatever we are, airborne travelers, I guess, where we are now. Then you have paths. So paths are very cheap to build. They don't require a lot of lift. It's like 100 paths for 1 lift. But later on, you will be required to illuminate the paths and whatnot to keep people happy. So if you go overboard with the paths, you're going to be paying for it later on. So building compact and efficiently is wise, much like the game Raft that I've played in the past. And then you have academies. Academies allows you to research blueprints. I don't have any resource buildings yet, but we'll be getting one soon. As far as storage goes, there's food silos, dedicated for food, warehouses, which is for these 5 resources, and then water towers, dedicated for water. Once I get some blueprints purchased with relics, I'll be able to show you lift, propulsion, and desires. Those are locked, as are resources and wonders. So the first thing to do here is you have to connect the paths to this tile here. This is the only non-pre-built path tile. And I would suggest probably surrounding the whole thing in paths, just so that you expand your building options. And another thing to notice is tilt issues. So if you build way too much in one direction, although paths are really lightweight, you're going to start tilting or listing in that direction. So it's important, well, I didn't mean to do that, but it's important to build very symmetrically, or at least balanced, or you're going to run into some severe issues with tilt, which will upset people. So that's to be avoided. So here's my initial path that I have. And then as part of this initial path, I am going to build a hangar. So you start off with, you start off with 10 adobe, and I'm going to spend my 10 adobe on a hangar. Basically, you're forced to, I might add. So this will tilt us 1 degree to the right, but that still doesn't make anyone unhappy. That's an acceptable amount of tilt. Also to note, this is your starting ruin that you launch from. It's unremarkable, half covered in sand, and you will be returning here once the game is won. In order to move around, it's the general right-click to pan, and then WASD, mouse wheel to zoom, so you can sort of look around the horizon if you want. And then to choose where you're moving, you just right-click on the map, and what will happen is it will deploy this little indicator balloon of where you're headed to. In order to collect the wood of this forest, it's going to be fastest to move to the forest so that the biplanes have the shortest commute time. And currently, all 9 inhabitants of my Airborne Kingdom are constructing the pathing and also the hangar. Cheers. Glitch, thank you for the bits. And Laura, thank you for the resub. So now that the hangar is built, it contains 7 aircrafts, which will allow you to collect resources from below. So my first big task here is going to be build housing. So let me update my priority next to me. There it is, build housing. And then I'll explain how the housing works. So initially you can build houses, and each house requires half a lift. So you can see the lift number up here. This hangar took me from 20 to 23. And the way the housing works is only parts of the houses need to actually connect to the road. So this is the quad block I'm talking about, where you can build 4 houses but only have 1 road connection, 1 path connection. But another concept, of course, is to keep it balanced. So generally, I try to mirror it on the x-axis, or the y-axis rather, or both, to make sure that you're not too far forward, too far back, too far left, or too far right. So I have 5 of my planes here dedicated, and you can see the 5 plane balloons, to grabbing wood from this forest, to then swoop back into my hangar and deliver it. And here, you can see that I'm gaining about 25.5 per hour from the forest collection, which will eventually exhaust. And oops, that's not where I meant to put that. And I'm turning this wood into houses so that the 9 people that I have all have roofs over their head. And then as they collect it, I can spend the wood as I desire. Now, this current design is a little back-leaning, so I also need to make sure that I'm planning on building forward as well, so that we don't just tilt backwards. So now I have queued up 10 houses, and once they're built, it will satisfy all 9 inhabitants with 1 house to spare, and we are now in Jubilant. All of their needs have been met. I've also gotten this little pop-up saying that a nearby forest has been fully chopped and replanted. It will regrow in time, so I can no longer collect anything from this forest. It is time to move on. And I'm going to be moving to this oasis, which collects water, and then this coal deposit, once I get a little bit closer, which collects coal. I have 26 out of 30 coal, I have 13 out of 30 water, and more of the forest as well. You'd be worried about taking your dog for a walk living up here? Yeah, either the dog learns to respect the edges of the walkway, or they don't live very long. So we were tasked to seek out the kingdom of Rutala, which I believe is this kingdom on the horizon out that way. Now you can take this at your own pace. There's no real rush necessarily. So if you want to spend time just building up and resource gathering, you're not penalized for it. So the next thing I'm probably going to want to build is academies. Academies allows you to research new blueprints. And what they will do once you build an academy is it will tie up 5 of your people to be full-time researchers. So it's very population intensive. So just keep that in mind. However, there is a benefit. As you fly around, you will find these little small settlements, and you can talk to the settlers and have them join. Generally speaking, the top 2 settlers will join you for free with no requirements. And the third one will have a certain happiness target to meet. So when you're recruiting these guys, it's actually smart to recruit them in reverse order from 3rd up to 1st. Because if I recruited the first 2, one of these currently would be homeless. And then as they are homeless, the 3rd one might not join as a result. So when clicking on this person, they're intrigued by the possibilities, but wary without many desires met. So they require jubilant inhabitants. Whereas the other 2 require just satisfied and mediocre. And now our population is 12 out of instead of 9, and I'm going to need to expand the houses once again. Now the next project is to get some academies going. So build science. That's what I'm going to want. Also, up here, this has gone to yellow, indicating that my coal storage is full. So I'm going to pull the 2 planes that were collecting it and instead put them on thicket. Thickets give you food. And I'm going to start moseying towards this ruin here, which gives me relics. There's also different types of ruins. So these here on the left give me the ability to color my buildings differently. So I'm going to want to go there as well. But I'm not going to go too far, because as you travel further from a collection point, so as I travel further from this oasis, the aircrafts have to travel further in order to collect the resources, which slows it down. But my water right now is just about full, and this forest doesn't have too many trips left. So we're, in other words, almost full of everything that we need. My food is full. All right. So, these fluorescent ponds glow with strange colors, and we now can paint our buildings the colors of this pond. So the way to do that is to click on any of your buildings here, and you can customize the motifs, which is the metal color, the walls, the floor tiles, and the lights. So if I wanted to go to the daybreak colors, which we just unlocked from that fluorescent pond, I can apply to all, and you can see that the buildings have changed colors. And then let's go with a blue to match the daylight colors, and now the lights are blue. Here you can see the lights changing colors appropriately. And then there is also changing your buoy. So the little buoy that you right click to move around to indicate where you want to go, that too can be customized. So if I wanted a darker buoy to show up against the backdrop, I could pick slate or verdant or something like that. Makes it a little bit easier to spot. So my next step is to go to this relic ruin to get basically bartering currency, and then also to collect some clay. So this clay here is what we're eventually going to turn in from clay to adobe through manual labor. The relic ruins can only be searched once. They do not regenerate relics, so they're single-use search, and you only send one plane, so they're pretty easy to get. Gusius, thanks for the resub, by the way. And welcome. Cheers. And I found 4 relics in the nearby ruin. And now it says the ruin relics have been found, and I can use that to buy technology. So what I really need is a little bit more wood. Getting my wood up to 30 gives me my first academy. And the nearby clay deposits have been pillaged of their clay. So up here, if I mouse over, I can see that I have 12 clay stored, ready to be baked in a kiln. 13 now, because a plane just landed. So this is the kingdom of Rutala that I was instructed to go to, but I'm actually going to detour real quickly over to this forest. I want to get the academies going so I can start to get some research. Hey, Pet Yoda, don't mind if I do. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Now, speaking about this game, this is just the starting area. There are different biomes out there which have their own unique challenges. So that's another thing to keep in mind as you expand and explore, that you probably shouldn't leave the starting area unless you know what you're doing or unless you have finished everything in the starting area, because it could be really challenging for you to survive out there. So this ruin just gave up 2 relics. And as these planes land, I'm getting access to enough wood to build my first academy. So here it comes. So I'm going to build my academies way up here. The reason being, they'll help further from the center. They'll help to offset all the housing. So one house built close to the center, you could think of as a fulcrum. One house built close to the center, or like 10 houses built close to the center, can be offset with one building built really far from the center, if you wanted to design it that way. Now, I particularly enjoy trying to get as much of the science done as I can, and I'm going to let you pick these science projects, but I'll explain them before I jump in. So you have basics, your town center, housing blocks, and hangars. You can improve the town center by increasing the amount of coal storage. Unlike water and food, your coal is only stored in your town center, but eventually as you get lift and propulsion projects done, those can be either powered with manpower or coal, and the ones powered with coal will draw from your stockpile. So increasing your coal storage is actually pretty important. These 2 projects increase your ability to regain resources when moving or destroying things. So if you need to move things around and redesign, that's a really good research project. And this increases your maximum speed, which isn't all that important right now because we don't have any propulsion. There's 4 types of propulsion, 4 types of lift, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 types of desires. So the next tab here is resources. The adobe kiln turns clay into adobe bricks, so that is something that you're going to get early on, and eventually you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 types of resource production. Some of these are hybrids of one another. It will make sense once we buy the blueprints. For storage, there's warehouses for general supplies, water towers, and food silos, and the research here allows you to stack them. That is also true of the housing research over here. So this housing research reduces your food requirements, your water requirements, and this one allows you to stack them. So instead of having one house, you can have 2 and then 3, as sort of an apartment complex going vertical, allowing you to more compactly build. Your hangar research is resource gather rate and more planes per hangar. So you have your kiln, and then how fast your kiln can make resources. The storages are increasing the size of your storages, and then also stacking. All the other storage research is just stack stuff. And I will get into lift, propulsion, and desires once we unlock them. So, my initial question here is, what do we research? Basic, resource, or storage? And I will pick what I think is the best option of those types. So I'll give you 1 minute to vote. And in that minute, I'm going to mosey on over to the Kingdom of Rhadamant and make first contact. So as a quick reminder, the basics would be town center, housing block, and hangar. Resources would be the kiln. And storage would be water tower, food silo, and warehouse. Hey, Stitches, thanks for the resub. As I slowly move away from this forest, we'll eventually get to a point where the resources can no longer be exploited because I'm simply too far. Kingdom of Rhadamant. I know the UI is a little in the way, but I'm going to be reading this for you. Oh, and it looks like resources won by a hair. Perfect. To fulfill the prophecy, we must have Rhadamant allied with us. Our machines awe the crowds and give an audience with the queen. We also may seek ancient blueprints that combine with our technology, our knowledge, to make wondrous technology. So there's a few different options here. We can either go on the quest for an alliance, buy technology blueprints with our relics that we found, or trade resources on the market at kind of a low cost. You know, you get a little screwed on that market. So our current priority here is to ally Rhadamant. That's how to win. So I'm first going to contact them for the quest. They seek our assistance for an important task. The Queen tells the great conservatory is in ruin. If only we could find resources and lend some of our workforce to its reconstruction. Completing such a request is the first step to gaining a kingdom's trust and eventually reconnecting them together to establish the prophecy once more. So in order to rebuild the great conservatory, I need 2 workers for 1 hour, 10 trees, and 2 adobe. I could buy the adobe, but in this case, I want to manufacture it myself. I think that's going to be a better way to sustainably source these projects. However, there is technology for blueprints. So, we can buy the blueprints for a glass smelter for 2 relics, a fan. A fan keeps us aloft. It has an average cost, average fuel, and 1 worker for average lift. It is sort of the balanced lift producer. Keeping in mind that my lift right now is 31 out of 40. And then a propeller. Generates propulsion, high cost, average fuel, 2 workers, average speed. So propulsion allows you to move around the map faster, and lift keeps you from, sinking. If you cannot build to exceed your lift, but if you don't mind being turtle slow, you don't really need propulsion. It's just very handy when you're trying to travel around large distances. I can buy 2 of these 3. What should I buy? I'll have you vote. So I am going to go back to my little floating city and head over to this giant forest over here while I research adobe kilns. Because we're going to need to start making bricks in order to put their conservatory back together. I'm slapping some additional housing down so that we can support a larger population. Making sure to fully harvest and then reseed this forest. It doesn't really matter too much because you end up being able to travel around enough that resources are not exactly finite. And I've chosen to go out this direction because there's a relic ruin that I'd like to hit. I'm also going to build another academy. I'm going to put it opposite the first one. Right there. Doubling my research output. And the Adobe kiln is researched. So opening up the research tree, I am going to make a choice because I currently have a pole up, which I will bring down. And this choice is going to be to increase my coal storage. The next project I'm going to want to set up is the kiln itself. I need more trees for that. As I pass over thickets and coal on my way back to maybe this forest on my left here, towards the northwest, I'm going to top up the resources that I need as well. Now currently, a lot of my population is tied up in research. 10 out of the 12 people that live on this floating city are researchers. So I don't have a lot of resource exploitation manpower, but we can recruit that. So there's a ruin over there that I'm going to poke around as I head for the trees. If anyone has any specific questions of the stuff that I've already covered, feel free to ask. Happy to help. So here is the Eternal Forge. A large forge glows hot with colored sparks. So what this allows us to do is customize the metals of our city. So if we go to customize motifs, we can go from iron to copper. Give us a sort of a more desert brown look. So the next thing I probably want to find is another settlement, which there is one out here because I'm running into manpower shortages. I seem to have plenty of food, water, and coal, even lift. I need a bit more people employed. Can I change the amount of people working in the academies? So what I could do is I can destroy the academies, but you can't really drill down in that kind of detail. For a building to be open, it requires to be fully staffed. However, multiple academies does give us the benefit of a lot more research output. So this is a way to sort of tech up quick. Quartz here, you eventually turn into glass. So that might be something that we could resource gather as well. And actually, I ended up getting more relics, so I'll be able to buy all the blueprints that they had offered. And here we are. Now, there's another thing to consider when you're building, and that is people don't necessarily like to live next to polluting structures. So this kiln, for instance, would have negative consequences if I built it too close to the houses, because it's dirty, in other words. So I'm going to build it here next to the academies. The people working in the academies don't mind. And now I have the ability to produce my own adobe with the planes collecting resources. And with that, I am headed to yet another unknown settlement to hopefully pick up some additional settlers. There is not research to reduce the amount of researchers, no. There isn't, not for that kind of production efficiency. There's a lot of production efficiency research, but not that kind of. So for this next house that I'm heading towards, I'm going to end up overpopulated, so I'm going to add 2 more houses with what little wood I have left. And now we have a population of 18. And I have produced my first adobe bricks. So I can go back to the Kingdom of Rotula and help to rebuild their conservatories. Do you get new people only from settlements? No. There are other ways to get new people. When you form an alliance, you end up getting new people as well. The game gives you the opportunity to recruit more people than you need to beat the game. The threshold to beat the game is 150, but you can easily exceed that population considerably. Alright, before I go back to Rotula, I'm going to grab this relic ruin and then head back to Rotula over there. So not all of these choices here are valid, because I don't have any lift propulsion desires to be researched, but I will very, very soon. So I'm just going to leave them up as options, because I'm about to buy the blueprints for everything but desires. So I'll give you 2.5 minutes on that. And I'm going to queue up some token research project until then, which is just food efficiency. So in order to rebuild their conservatory, I do need a little bit more wood. So I'm going to head over to this forest over here, grab a little bit of wood, and then go back to Rotula and make them plenty happy with rebuilding their conservatory. Research is gated by time and blueprints. So some of the research here is locked because I haven't bought the blueprints, but then once you buy the blueprints, you get everything that belongs to that tree. It will make a lot more sense in a minute when I go and buy the fan, the propeller, and the glass smelter blueprints. Do the numbers on the ground mean anything? They do. So these numbers on the ground are how much of that resource is left. So this forest has 75 wood remaining. And as we collect it, you can see the numbers dropping. So it's just a sort of a cartographical way of showing resources. It's very elegant. I like it. All right, let's head back to Rotula. And it looks like you guys want basics research, so I'm probably going to next queue up less water usage and just make it easier to keep our people fed and hydrated. Okay, let's pull 2 people from collecting coal so that I can dedicate it to rebuilding their conservatory. So here we are, 10 wood, 2 adobe, 2 people. And now we're rebuilding it for them. You cannot leave the area around the city, their city, when we're rebuilding it. So we have to stay within a certain radius of this town or the rebuilding the Great Conservatory fails. All right, same poll again, I know. All right, so before that, what I will do is buy the blueprints. So here's the smelter, the fan, the propeller. So if I take a look at the research tree here, here's the fan research. In order to be able to build fans, I first need to be able to research it, but now I have the blueprints. So it costs 15 wood, 5 adobe, and it requires 1 person to work there. Generally speaking, the more people it requires, the less fuel it requires. So you can have lift, which is mostly human resource base or mostly coal resource base. And that's sort of the balance of the two. For propulsion, the propeller is average as well. It's 2 workers and average fuel. So some propulsion will be a lot of workers, no fuel, and some will be a lot of fuel, no workers, in other words. And you can see the upgrades to these as well. So here, increase lift by up to 50% and decrease coal usage by up to 60%. Increase propulsion by up to 50%, decrease coal usage up to 60%. So the research is about efficiency and improvement. Right now, my people ran out of clay. So although I have 3 people working in the kiln, the adobe kiln, I have 0 people actually making adobe. So it would be good for me to collect the clay over here. So I'll head over that way. And the conservatory is complete. And a couple of locals join our cause as a result. Next, the Queen asks us to find a sapling from the golden trees of Col Duar. The exact whereabouts of the trees are unknown, but their rumored location is marked on our map. So if we open up the map, you can see this sort of black circle here to our east-northeast. So there is a compass up top. And if we point east-northeast, that would be around this direction. But I'm not going to go there just yet. I want to top up on clay and coal first. Make sure we have the resources to go for a trip. And it looks like you all voted for me to invest in basic research again. Feel a little overpowered by the music. I love the soundtrack, but it's sometimes hard to talk over it. Alright, so that clay deposit's gone. Let's get the coal. And I do have 2 people that are homeless. So what will happen, immediately you will not see that I will drop from jubilant to satisfied. But I am required to build 2 additional houses sooner than later in order to satisfy my inhabitants. So there are the 2 houses. And then I wanted to go east-northeast, which is this direction. And I'm first going to stop at this relic. Oh no, we already found the relic there. But there is a unknown settlement out that way. Now another thing to note is that after 5 more workers, I ascend to the next kingdom title, which is a way to... it's a complicated way of basically saying the game gets harder. So you just note that as well. I'm also at my lift max, so I don't really have the ability to add many more buildings to this city until I increase my lift. And you all voted for me to do basic again, so I am going to research housing stacking. And then, again, more research choices. I'll just continually... You'll see these posted often. So there's a relic rune over here that I'd like to hit up for currency. And then this here is a ruin that looks like a golden grove. So I believe that that is my quest location. Pretty good bet that that would be true. Where's the weapons option? No, this is a peaceful game. And there's also an Eternal Forge, which gives us more metal alloys. I'm going to pit stop here briefly for the thicket for food, and then also for the forest for wood. Well, let's check out the new metal alloy. It is bronze. Ooh, I like the way bronze looks on the minarets here. Looks very nice. I'll even go to orange lights. Very shiny. There is a settlement here to be able to recruit people, but at the moment I feel pretty good with the amount of people that I have, so I am not eager to add to it. You don't have to, right? You can take your time and add as you see fit. So I'm going to wait for that. Do these resource locations grow over time? Some of them do, not all of them. So some of them can be exploited until there are no more. Like clay, for instance. And the way to fill it back up is just to travel. Hey, Maylen. It's going pretty well. How about for yourself? Thank you for the resub. Thank you for tuning in to Airborne Kingdom, a Let's Play tutorial, which originally streamed live on Twitch, April 5th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, my stream schedule can be found at Rhadamant.com or on Discord. If you'd like to join my gaming community, Rhadamant.com and the description of this video have a link to Discord. Thank you for watching. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel. I'll catch you next episode, or perhaps some other upcoming stream. Farewell.